In 2035, a manned mission is flown to the planet Mars named Ares 3 led by Commander Melissa Lewis, Mark Watney, Major Rick Martinez, and Beth Johansson. The mission will explore Acidalia Planitia. If calculated against the Martian calendar, the mission falls on the 18th Martian solar day, Sol, of their 31 expedition Sol. Sol is the name for the day on Mars. A severe dust storm was ready to hit their Mars Ascent Vehicle/MAV spacecraft. The mission was eventually aborted, but while all the crew were busy evacuating, astronaut Mark Watney was hit by debris and lost in a storm. The telemetry from the biomonitor of his astronaut suit was broken, leaving him undetected by the rest of the crew, and presumed dead. With the remnants of the MAV nearly destroyed, the surviving crew managed to take off for the Hermes, a ship orbiting above Mars, by leaving Watney behind. Meanwhile on Earth, NASA announces that the mission is aborted due to a massive storm on Mars. All crew survived except Mark Watney, who according to them died from being hit by the debris. Commander Lewis and the rest of the crew are safe and on their way home. On Mars, Watney awoke from his stupor after the storm subsided. He was badly injured and with warning signs from his astronaut suit that oxygen was running low. He limped back to the hab, where the crew resided on Mars, and attempted to treat his wound with surgery on his own. When Watney recovered, he began to document his activities through video recordings. Due to the lack of communication with Earth, he doesn't know how to contact NASA. The only chance to save him is through the next Mars mission, which will only be carried out in 4 years, where the mission is Ares 4, which will land as far as 3,200 km in the Schiaparelli crater. Watney thought hard about how to survive. The main thing he thought about was food. As a botanist on that mission, he tried to improvise by creating a garden inside the hab in Martian soil fertilized with sewage from previous crews. He also produced water from the remaining rocket fuel. Watney searched for whatever was left in the hab. He tried to grow potatoes left over from the crew's food supply. He also started modifying the rover for a simulated trip to the Ares 4 landing site. Watney spends day after day on Mars doing whatever he can. On Sol 54, the potatoes he planted successfully grew. This is an achievement on the planet Mars, which is notorious for being barren and lifeless. While on Earth, NASA's satellite planner Mindy Park surveyed the hab on Mars, and she noticed a piece of equipment that had moved position. She suspected that Watney was still alive, so NASA Director Teddy Sanders publicly released the news. Although the crew of Ares 3 survivors were still on the run, NASA didn't tell him about the trip to Earth with the excuse that they would stay focused on the mission. Meanwhile on Mars, Watney uses his rover to take a Pathfinder probe, or some kind of GPS that has been around since 1997. He tries to communicate to Earth with makeshift equipment. He uses a camera and a motor that is still running on the Pathfinder. Hermes flight director Mitch Henderson urged Sanders to inform the crew, who might still be able to return to Mars to pick up Watney, but Sanders refused. Meanwhile, Mars mission director Vincent Kapoor and Jet Propulsion Laboratory/JPL director Bruce Ames set up the Iris spacecraft to deliver food supplies to Watney to keep him alive until the Ares 4 mission arrives on Mars. Back to Watney, who has managed to grow potatoes in the hab and is harvesting them. He tried to go to another point on Mars called Chrysi Planitia. When he got there, he found a Pathfinder, so he can make communication with the Earth, and which seems to work. While on Earth, Vincent Kapoor heads to Bruce Ames' base to confirm the location of Watney. When he got there, it turned out that they got an incoming message signal from Watney. They used a camera that integrated with the device and could only communicate with yes or no words. They managed to communicate for the first time since Watney was declared missing and dead. Felt the previous experiment was less effective, he tried to give a sign in his handwriting, then sent it to NASA. He made two-way communication with ASCII, which stands for American Standard Code for Information Interchange, which means it is a character coding standard for communication tools, or it can also be called hexadecimal, and he succeeded. Everyone on Earth witnessed it live. Watney was disappointed and angry when he found out that the Hermes crew did not realize he was still alive. Sanders finally softened, and allowed Henderson to tell the crew of Hermes. Commander Lewis and all the crew were shocked and happy as well to hear that Watney is still alive. On Mars, the hab airlock was damaged by a storm that also destroyed his potato crop. It also damaged his astronaut suit. The storm destroyed everything but the remaining rover and became the only safe place for him to take shelter. This makes him even more desperate. The incident also made the crew on Earth sad. They are thinking of the best way to at least make Watney survive until the next mission arrives on Mars. Meanwhile in NASA, Sanders believed that the delivery of a food supply vehicle was a low risk, so he immediately ordered his subordinates to launch it to Mars. For the first time, Watney managed to communicate with the crew of Hermes. The crew apologized for the incident that made them have to leave Watney behind. In the meantime, at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, Rich Purnell in Astrodynamics is contacted by NASA to help troubleshoot the duration of the next launch to Mars. He asked for time to study it first. At NASA, engineers are also involved in troubleshooting the duration to Mars, to deliver food supplies to support Watney's life before the pickup arrives. On Mars, Watney is almost out of food supply. He has to save it, and who knows for how long. When the launch of the rocket to Mars has come, bad luck happens when the rocket vehicle explodes moments after launch. Knowing this made Watney even more desperate and felt that he would someday die on Mars. Commander Lewis also read the message that Watney sent. She was very sad to read it. A moving moment, in which Watney sent a message to all the crew that he was proud of his work, and also to be part of the NASA team. On the other hand, China's National Space Administration has developed a secret booster rocket called Tianshan. NASA feels that its friendship with scientists can be used to figure out how to relaunch the IRIS probe to Mars. Rich Purnell finally managed to calculate the duration of the next probe that will go to Mars. He then went to NASA to present it. As time went by, Watney's situation became increasingly worrying and risky. JPL astronomer Rich Purnell devised an alternative plan by having the Tianshan and the Hermes spacecraft meet to supply supplies, which would then use Earth's gravity as if it were a catapult that could return to Mars in over 2 years. Sanders rejected the idea, considering it too risky for the Hermes crew, while Henderson secretly transmits Purnell's plan to the Hermes crew. The crew made a vote, which chose to agree or not with the plan, to return to Mars to pick up Watney. The majority of the crew agreed, and they deactivated the NASA remote control and made a change of direction. NASA was powerless to stop them and acknowledge the problem. Meanwhile, Mitch Henderson and Teddy Sanders went to China to discuss the issue of launching a probe that will use Chinese Space Agency's Tianshan rocket. Hermes and its crew prepared to make a return to Mars. On Mars, Watney began preparing for his very risky first trip to Schiaparelli on Sol 90, where the MOV for Ares 4 had already been placed. Because of the MOV's heavy weight, Watney figured out how to lighten it. This was useful so that the MOV could go fast to intercept Hermes on his new path. Watney removed a lot of components on the MOV, and then replaced the nose cone with canvas. In the meantime on Earth, Watney's dramatic pickup mission was broadcast live by NASA, via a large screen located in Times Square, New York. Back to Mars, after takeoff, the MOV failed to reach the desired speed. Meanwhile at Hermes, Commander Lewis reduced the speed of the probe with the RCS, a spacecraft system that uses thrusters to provide control. She also ordered decompression of the blast from the Martian atmosphere, to properly align the probe. The MOV that brought Watney out of Mars finally slid into orbit. Watney fainted from the pressure inside the MOV that shook him. Lewis tried to contact him, but there was no answer. Pickup distance from Hermes to MOV is about 68 kilometers. This caused a bit of a problem, and Watney had an idea that he would cut his gloves so that they could be used as propulsion from the wind gusts. For a moment Commander Lewis turned off communication to Earth, due to this crucial thing. In maneuvering, Commander Lewis failed to reach Watney, because his mooring failed. Watney used the air pressure in his suit to propel himself toward Lewis. Struggling between life and death, Watney finally made it onto the ride with Lewis. He was reunited with the crew after 560 days alone, on the deserted red planet. Those who witnessed the action on Earth cheered with joy.
Watney has been successfully rescued. After a very long time, they have done what many people thought was impossible.
After a normal life on Earth, Watney becomes an instructor for aspiring astronauts on survival in space. 5 years later, when Ares 5 is about to launch, those involved in rescuing Watney look like they'll be on the same crew again, of course with different people. In the meantime, all the previous Hermes crew have reunited with their respective families on Earth along with the end of this film.